Can you hear me now? Yeah, that does help. I just spent 5 minutes talking to air. Hopefully, you guys can hear me now. Um, I'm glad I'm animated. So let me go ahead and re-say what I was going to say. Oh, yay. It's Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. I am Toni for the Fiberology Lab. Welcome. This is Coffee Chat with me. And I am in session 5 of Quilting Basics. And I'm going to try to remember what the heck I just said for the first 5 minutes. Good grief. Hey, Hope. Hey, Trish. Hey, Linda. Hey, Debbie. Oh my goodness, I can't remember who Scorpio is. I think I can't remember. Whew. Hey, hey, Christine. Who else is coming in? Diana. Everybody's here except me, apparently, but now I'm here. So I'm glad you guys can hear me now. Hey, Anna. Good morning to you, too. So I don't know what I was talking about 5 minutes ago. It's just Wednesday. It is what it is. Still trying to get into a routine. So, but this is Coffee Chat. What I'm going to do, what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks is just talking about quilting processes and doing it in a progression of how I teach it for my quilting 101, learning how to quilt. So I'm just calling it Quilt Basics. We are in session 5 today, and that is cutting. And one of the things I mentioned yesterday was that I can't teach perfection, but I can teach you processes that will allow you to have a more satisfying finished project. So yesterday I mentioned yesterday was accuracy. Number 1 was pressing. Number 2 is cutting. Number 3 is sewing a 1/4 inch seam or any seam allowance properly on your machine. And then 4, which I didn't mention, but I thought about and I forgot about last night, is pinning. And 2 of the most unfavorite things of all sewers and quilters alike is pressing and pinning. But I'm telling you, if you do those 2 things, and there are certain ways to do them to help make a more accurate process, you will enjoy your end project. So we get a little rambunctious and get ahead, and this is a really in-depth piece that I'm sharing with you every coffee chat. But you can totally jump in and start quilting anytime if you're new. And if you've been doing it for years, then this is just like a refresher course or something. Hopefully you'll learn some new things. So no binding. Oh yeah, that's the other thing. I'll talk about binding later too. So we'll be talking a lot about different things. I wrote out my sessions for about 17, and I've already got follow-on things. So more in-depth stuff. So keeping it simple, we're going to do some simple blocks. We're going to do some simple quilting. We'll do a simple binding, and then we'll have more expanded topics after we go through this session. And I decided to re-record everything because right now I'm using 2 cameras, and you can see the camera here, and it's fuzzy. It's the internet's not working strongly. So that's one of the downsides of doing a live. So I'm going to try to record these sessions as I go along, and I'll eventually sell that as a class. But if you're watching it here on YouTube, you get it for free. Don't forget to join our Mighty Networks, our Friends Fibers Fun.club, and join that group. The group is called Coffee Chat Quilting Basics, and you'll get the PDFs. I've been doing PDFs for each session, and I've been updating them as I go along when I think of things as I'm talking. When I'm writing stuff and how I present it, and then when I actually talk, I realize, oh yeah, I forgot to put that down in the notes. So I encourage you also to take notes so you can match up with what I have already done in a PDF form. Who else just came on? Good morning, TC. Good to see you. Yay, TC can drive. That's so exciting. I'm so happy to hear that, TC. Get to go hang out with everybody for lunch today. Wednesday was our Wednesday group, which I miss dearly. And I'm glad that they still meet up and hang out together and talk about me. I'm sure they do. What else will they talk about because I'm not there? No, they don't. I love my friends and I miss them very, very much. So today, I watch for a newsletter. I normally send them out on Monday. I will send one out later this afternoon, kind of touching base with what's going on in the lab and also what's going on in November. I mentioned yesterday in our coffee chat that our 12 days of giving will kick off on Black Friday, and it's going to run the end of November to the first week or so into December, just because I went to market and I found things. And I want to make sure I have them in hand before I start really showing them in the 12. I've got more stuff already for the 12 days of giving, but I found more. And I'm going to tease you guys this afternoon. Also, I'm also going to do a live YouTube and Facebook StreamYard talking about some of the things I saw at Quilt Market that you might want to be interested in. And then I'm going to do my live sale tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern in Comment Sold and Facebook and all the fun places I can do it at. If you are curious of what I did order and have in hand now. So lots going on. It's like Christmas. Christmas is not too far away. Christmas is not too far away. So is everybody drinking their morning beverage? Let's start off with everybody have morning beverage in hand. My morning beverage is coffee. Today, I think I actually have 2 cups, which is very unusual. So we already see what happens when you have coffee. You get no sound. So hopefully I can keep on track for the rest of the show. Christine, it is better than Christmas. I can't wait to show you guys the fabric I have coming in. Did I show you the bundle yesterday? I'll show you this afternoon. I also have really cool new seam rippers that I'm really, really excited to show everybody. My seam ripper, as I always get comments on it, so I reached out to the vendor of that ripper, and she's like, I'll make you some. I'm like, okay, she did. She made me 16. I'm so excited. All right. So nobody wants to share what you're drinking? That's okay, because I have a feeling some of you are at work. You're supposed to be working. We don't want to get you in trouble. It's all good. So let's go ahead and get going talking about cutting today and cutting tools. First of all, you want to make sure you have the right cutter for you. There are so many different styles out there. And trust me, I have used them all. And I have learned what I like and what I don't like. And I don't have the ones I don't like because I don't like them. But this one is one of the shapes you can get. This reminds me also of the Friskers. Friskers has one. Friskers tend to be the white ones and the gray ones that have a handle piece right here. That drives me nuts. My hand hits that all the time. And that's why I said, I don't like this. The other reason I don't like particularly this style is because of the way the handle works. And this one's really light. Now, Olfa makes the yellow ones like this, and they are a little more weighted, but I'm not crazy about it. And that's just, well, this one's purple. So I like it because it's purple, but not because it doesn't fit my hand. But again, try them out. I tend to use these 2 the most. So this is an Olfa as well. This is lightweight. I like it because I can cut on the left and right side because I'm teaching. I tend to do both sides, so I try to make sure everyone understands how to cut properly, which I'm going to show you here in a minute. And the other thing is I don't have to flip the blade from left to right side. Another reason why I like this one as well. Oops, this one as well. So with this style of cutter, you have to flip the blade to if you're left-handed or right-handed. How many of you knew that? It baffles me how people come to class and they're cutting left-handed, but their blade is on the right side of the wrong side of the cutter for them to cut accurately. So if you didn't know that, I'm going to talk about how to change a blade here in a minute. With this one, I wish I had the Olfa one. Like I said, I don't carry the ones that I don't like. So I do normally carry these in stock, which I don't have right now. And this is a Quilter Select. So I don't carry them because I'm not a dealer yet. I have talked to them before about being a dealer or even just carrying some of their product. I like this one because it's heavy. It's weighted. I like something that's not going to fling out of my hand because I know I've got it. Sometimes when I'm working with these, they're so light that I kind of fling them out, not paying attention. I also forget to close the blade on this one. So I try to be very conscientious of that. This one is a pressure blade, and I'll show you how that works. So if you're left-handed and you have one of these kind of cutters, or even another cutter where you have to flip the blade, and how do you know? Well, see how thick that is? That's how you know. Like this one, it's so thin, you can't put the blade on the other side. There's no mechanical way to do it. But this one there is. In this particular cutter, all you're going to do is unscrew the back. Well, it's dirty. And flip it over. Trying to do it so I don't cut myself. I'll turn my camera down here in a minute. Whoops. Create for live video. And what I have noticed with people in this, especially the Olfa has a little washer, a little black washer. Don't lose it. That's kind of important. But they always stick it under the blade. Try to keep that paper from the rotary cutter, so you make sure you put your blade back on right. So if I am right-handed with this style of cutter, we want the blade on the left side of the cutter. If you are left-handed, you want it on the right side of the cutter. Something to keep in mind. I should put that as a note. Hope says she loves her Quilter Selects. Yes, I agree with that. Debbie says she didn't know that. You didn't know? Well, that's what I'm here for, to kind of keep you informed. You need it in purple. Iced coffee, Hope. Yum. It's like a cool, refreshing, caffeinated treat. I'm sweating. I'm by windows right here, and so this morning sun's hitting them. I'm hot. I'm hot. So let me see if the camera will flip down, so I can show you the rest of my surface here. Let's see how that works. Oh, yay. Let me turn my camera a little bit. Twist it. Hopefully I won't make you too sick. There we go. Okay. So I think I talked about this in our supply list. There are different size of cutters. These are the 3 most common size. There's actually 2 more smaller ones. I didn't pull them out because you're not going to need them. This is a 28. I use this the most for paper piecing. And this one, again, is a pressure release blade, which means the blade is always covered. But when you put pressure on it, it will expose the blade. The only thing you need to remember with these style of cutters is that if you have it in an open position lock on the back and you drop it on your foot, guess what? The blade becomes open because that's pressure. So always try to remember to come back and lock it, so in case it ever bounces off the table. I've heard some really interesting horror stories about that. And then this one is a 60 millimeter, which I don't use typically for my fabric cutting. I use it for high loft or thick loft fabric. So like your fleece, denim, if you're going to be cutting more than a couple layers, like say 4 layers of denim, I would use this. You can probably still use this. But the 60 millimeter is meant more for like cutting and trimming around your quilts, where you've got a couple layers of fabric and that batting in there, or mainly your fleece or your minkies and things. So that I put off the side, but this is my variety of 45-degree rulers. So just kind of quickly show you the 3 different kinds. Like I said, I use this the most. This one I just have because it used to be our shop tool, and I don't have it at the shop. I use one of these at home. Changing the blade on this style of Olfa, super easy, and flip it over and it pulls right out. And look at all that nasty stuff. You don't want that. This is just built up lint. You just want to make sure you clean it out before you put it back in. This one is pretty much the same way. We're going to pull that down and it pulls the whole thing off. And this one I showed you where you just unscrew it. So locking parts. These 2 do not have a forced locked setting, which means if I want a blade that's covered, I have to actually slide this up and down. This one doesn't. This one you have to hold that button in for the pressure to open that blade. When you're not pressing that button, there is no open blade. You can't drop it. So it's in a natural locked position, which again, I really like because I have knocked this off the table before. But again, we're going to hold it with our thumb, push it down and cut. We're going to do it right-sided. We're going to push it down and cut. Now, this one is the one I want to caution people out. If you have this style of cutter, either a Frisker style or an Olfa style or any other brand, this black button, this tends to be red on most styles like this. It locks your blade from popping open if you hold the handle, which is what you want it for. What I see is people will hold this in and push that button. Oops, maybe not on this one. There it goes. And leave the blade exposed. So if you don't hit that button to release this part, it'll always stay open. So I don't, that's another reason why I don't enjoy using this kind of cutter. And I try to encourage people not to get this kind of cutter. So that's just my opinion. That's what this whole show is about, my opinion on cutting. So those are kind of the overall information about rotary cutters. Does anybody have any questions about that? I'm going to grab a ruler across the room because I didn't have it. Okay. So the next thing is we need to actually cut. So yesterday we pressed our fabric. So I'm not going to be able to get this whole piece into the frame because I don't have enough camera space and height for my camera for you to see it. But needless to say, I have my selvage here and a fold down here. This is what it looks like when it comes off the bolt, even though I have pressed this fabric. One of the things I forgot to mention yesterday, I also tend to put fabric on hanger. So like I press all my fabric and then I hang it before I cut it. That way I know it will stay. I don't have to re-iron it. Basically, I'm trying to say you don't have to re-iron it. If your fabric is, you can see where this has been folded in the box. Now, if you fold your fabric and put it away, you might want to come back and press it again. Just lightly press it. You don't need no starch that second time of pressing, but you don't want a lot of creases when you cut because then that distracts from the accuracy process. Christine says, "Did you try to get the Crave Go to the market? It's my favorite." No, I didn't bother looking at it because I was focused on other things. I knew they had it. I just never got to touch it, Christine. But I like what I have. So if I like what I have, I'm probably going to keep ordering what I have. But I will check them out. Wasn't a priority. Block of the months and new fabrics was a high priority for market. So all right. I'm going to change cameras again real quick just because I want to show you how to talk about fabric before we start cutting it. So when we look at fabric, we look and we assume that the selvage edges are straight. They are probably the most unstraight edge on this piece of fabric right now that I'm holding in my hand. The only guarantee, and this is geometry, guys. I don't like geometry. All this stuff I don't like, but this is one thing I will tell you. The only for sure straight line on this fabric is this bottom fold. I know you're going, really? Really? Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Because even if I did this number, that is still a straight line. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to get you visually to see. So your fold on the bottom of your fabric is a straight line. So that is what we want to line up on our ruler, is a line on our ruler and a line on the fold before we start cutting. Now, some fabric, because it gets stretched and steamed before it gets on the bolt, it gets kind of skewed. So when you go to match up your selvages before this next step, you might have to actually match it up into a way where this is why we're squaring up. So I haven't even said that yet, but we're going to square one edge of our fabric. So it might end up being like this before you can fold in half. Now this has been rested and pressed, and because of that, it was already in the natural state of not having a bubble down here. So if you bring your fabric, your selvages up top, and you have a bubble where it's not laying straight down here, just kind of shift it with your fingers until it's straight. So I'm trying to see if you guys can see that. Nope, you can't see it in the red. But play with your fabric. You'll understand when you just stand there and shift it with your fingers back and forth, and you'll see that it isn't lining up flat on the bottom of that fold. So now we've got this up. We are going to put it on our cutting surface. So I'm going to go back to here. So you have my selvage right here. And now I think everybody owns one of these long 24-inch rulers. One of these long rulers. And the whole purpose of that is to, cut the width of fabric as it comes off the bolts. Well, so one of the things I have learned when I do that is it's more work. It's a longer cut. The ruler shifts, the ruler moves. So I'm going to encourage you to cut in half that width, which tends to be your 12.5 by 6.5 ruler. So how do we get our fabric ready to cut with a smaller ruler? I'm putting my selvage here. I've matched it up. It's on the top. I'm going to come to the bottom and fold up towards my selvage. So my selvage is always going to be on top. And then here's the key thing when you do this type of layering, I guess, folding. So we want to make sure there's no gaps in the two folds down here. Sometimes this fabric will slip and you'll have a gap. If the folds are not nestled, because remember there's 2 layers of fabric right there. We fold it in half, so we got 2 layers of fabric. We want to make sure they nestle together. If there are a gap, you will have a line with a fabric strip that does one of these things. It goes off to the side. So we don't want to do that. I am going to show how to square up for the right-handers first and then the left-handers. How many left-handers are in the room today besides me? So now you can see my 12.5-inch ruler will easily cut the width of this fabric because we fold it in half. And so I like to actually use a line on my ruler. I don't like to use my bottom edge. It's just because I can't visually see the edge of the fabric. I like to do the line where I can see the edge past the line. And I am going to slide it over here and I lift up the corner. I lift up this raw edge I'm going to square. Make sure I'm getting all 4 layers. You want about a 1/4 inch. And sometimes depending on how you folded it up at the selvage, you might need more. So don't be afraid to trim it down. Now, if you go to a shop that you know is not generous when they cut, our shop, we tend to give you about an extra inch. You might actually get more than an inch of fabric for this purpose. This is why I always make sure you never get exactly 36 inches. You never get exactly 36.5 inches. You tend to normally get 37, 37.5, or whatever that measurement is. So I've got it lined up here on the bottom, on the ruler, on the bottom edge of the fold. I'm about 1/4 inch or so in because I know I have got all 4 edges that when I trim it, I don't have to worry about retrimming it. And the next step I'm going to do is I'm looking for that 1-inch line. This is my buffer. I always make sure my fingers sit an inch away from that edge. Always, always, always. Do not put your fingers here because you will take off a nail or a piece of skin. So I recommend a 1 inch. It's easy to eyeball and it's easy to remember. And the other thing you can immediately see is that I tend to have my pinky on the edge of the ruler and my hands spread out. Now, if you have arthritis, or if you have carpal tunnel, or if you have something that's it's painful for your wrist or your hand, get one of those suction cup holders to push down and hold this in place. Don't palm your ruler. There's too many tools out there that will make it easier. When you palm the ruler, there's a couple things that happen. It slides a lot more. You can't see your numbers. So I don't encourage palming the ruler unless you have no strength in your hand. But get those suction cups. I don't have them, but they sell them, and you can get them at Home Depot now for the bathtub. So again, 1-inch line, 1/4 inch from the edge. If I can, I put my pinky on the edge of the ruler so it tells me, that's like my indicator saying, "Ooh, it slipped. Ooh, it slipped." And then I'm going to grab my rotary cutter, open up the blade. Because I am using a line on the ruler, my ruler extends past the bottom of my fabric, which makes it easier for me to start off my fabric, come onto my fabric, keep constant pressure all the way through. If you're a golfer or baseball, you've heard, or even if you're not, you've heard how they say follow through with the swing. So make sure I like to start off the fabric, come onto it, and I go all the way off the fabric. You notice I'm talking and I have not moved my hand. That's because I want to make sure I've cut through all that layer. If I haven't cut through that layer, I'd have to reset everything up. So don't move that hand until you've pulled this away, your other piece away. Do you have any questions? I use a weight, dumbbell. Oh, that's a good idea, Christine. That's a good idea where she uses weights. They also have like sewing weights for cutting patterns. So that is how we square one edge. We do not need to square both edges because we're going to just cut from one edge and work our way across the fabric. Again, I'm still talking right-handed. I'm going to do this for the left-handed people, but let me show you what we're going to do now. So according to my pattern, we're going to be working on rail fences next, and we need to cut 3 2.5-inch strips from our light, medium, and dark. And that direction is on the PDF as well. But I forgot to mention the most important thing. As a right-hander, we always cut on the right side of the ruler. Excuse me, on the left-hander, you always cut on the left side. So now I'm ready to cut my 2.5 inches, and I've trimmed up my edge. There is no physical way for me to cut as a right-hander on this piece of fabric unless I actually flip around and go to the other side of the table. So I'm going to flip my fabric. Now, this is my thing. I know there's other ways. Trust me, there's tons of other ways. But I don't want to flip my ruler. I don't want to bring another ruler in. I don't want to move around the table. I pinch and flip. So I pinch here, right here on the raw edge. And I make sure I hold all 4 layers. I don't pinch here because that will shift the fabric. I make sure I pinch where I have cut and I flip my fabric. Now this is a little stiff fabric, but if you had a lighter weight fabric, take your time because the whole goal is for accuracy. We want to make sure those 4 edges stay together. Now, if you had like a 2.5 yard piece and you're working from a bigger piece of fabric, kind of think through what you're going to cut. So we know we need 3 2.5 inch strips, which is 7.5 inches. I would probably cut a 1/4 yard of this off and work from that to cut down. So kind of think some of your processes through as you do this. I'm using, this is my oldest creative grid ruler ever. The lines are finally going away. I've had it over 12 years, but it does have a 1/2 inch built in. And because we're cutting a 2.5 inch, this is a good one to use for this process. So what I do when I cut my strips, we're cutting with the fabric. Remember, with the fabric is selvage to selvage. These selvage edges together is going perpendicular to the grain. I need to cut 3 2.5 inch strips. So I have my line, bottom line here on the fold of the fabric, but now I have a second straight line, and that is the one we just squared up with. So I'm going to use that line and make sure I'm lining up here and here. So I'm going to bring the ruler, the mark on the ruler to the fabric edge. I don't ever, so here's the fabric. I wish I put, here we go. I don't have my glow tape because that would have been a smart thing to do, but I'm going to show you. I have some washi tape. You have washi tape. It works. I'm going to put it right here so you guys can see on the camera where we're at. So we have 1 2.5. Instead of taking my ruler here, so here's the line, and bringing it up to my fabric, I put the fabric the other direction. So see, that's the line. Can you guys see that? I can't zoom in. This is the only thing I don't like about StreamYard. And that's the fabric edge. So I'm going to bring the ruler to the fabric edge instead of the fabric to the ruler's edge. Because what happens is, if I come up to the fabric from this direction, this is right-handed, you might end up short. You can't see it really closely, but I'm like right at that line. It's a little short. And then I want to give myself just as teeny much of fudge space as I can. So I come to where I like to say a shadow, a thread, barely there. There is a very little piece of the fabric going past that line. Very small piece, because that will allow me to have some fudge space in case the ruler slips on me or I'm pressing and something else happens along the process. So again, I'm going to come over here, look for my 1 inch barrier, put my fingers down, got the line matched up here. Oops, you guys can't see the bottom of my camera. Shoot, let me redo that. I thought you could. Come back up here. There we go. Now you guys can see. Okay. All right, and I look for that 1 inch line. I put my hands down. I've got lined up here and lined up there. Off the fabric, on the fabric, constant pressure. Now, if you have to put so much pressure on your cutter or on your finger, your blade probably needs to be replaced, because it should be able to go through it nice and smooth. You shouldn't have to, and sawing. Oh, don't saw your fabric. Please don't saw your fabric. So again, I moved the fabric before I moved the ruler, and then that's my first 2.5 inch strip. So like I was saying, the reason I don't move my hand is because I see in class people that they move the ruler and realize, oh, there's a chunk up there, and they just take the cutter and cut it up. Don't do that because you'll end up cutting into your pieces. And again, I'm teaching accurate processes, things to not do. And the other thing, when you cut, always follow through, always point the cutter away from you, and don't saw, and don't come backwards. Think of the best way. It amazes me how many people will cut backwards. For the longest time, Alex Anderson on her videos, that's how she was teaching. I cannot stress how unsafe that is. Think of that blade going away from you. You want that blade never coming towards you. You want it always going away from you. And if you do that, you'll be able to ensure accurate processes. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what you're going to do if you're left-handed. We're going to do the same kind of process. We're going to rinse and repeat, but it's a little different. It's opposite. So if we're left-handed, we're going to cut on the left side of the ruler. Do the same thing. I'm lining up with the bottom fold, making sure I have all 4 layers that I can get through them. Put that cutter in my left hand, start off fabric, come onto fabric, and go off. Don't move that hand until you know you've got all of that fabric. Pinch and flip, making sure I'm getting all 4 layers. Don't pinch up here. You want to pinch right on that edge so it doesn't shift. Flip it. Again, find that 2.5-inch line. I'm lining it up on here, on the bottom, and on the right side of the fabric, and I'm going to cut it left-handed. I was going to say something else. Just thought of something else. I can't remember what I was going to think it of. Oh, I know what it is. I am notorious at visually seeing the number 2 and then actually having the ruler at number 3. Oh, I see 2.5, so I must be right. This is why this type of tool helps you, this visual tool, like, oh, that's not right. I need to move it this way. So having that tape does help. I do physically, you'll see me cutting in videos where I'm counting out loud, or I'll count the inches because I have been known to cut things wrong. So that was one of the ways I uncut wrong. So that is your homework. You're going to find your medium, light, and dark. You're going to cut 3 2.5-inch strips. Let me see if I've covered all my notes in my paper. Let me switch the camera back so you don't have to see my stuff. All right. I think that's it. I think that is it. No. Does anybody have any questions? No sign. Now, as you start, if you're already very well into your quilting processes, and you know there's a times when you're working around a ruler that sometimes you have to cut in a direction that's towards your body, I encourage you to step up and get out of that chair and rotate your body around the table. You always want to cut around away from you. You never want to bring that cutter towards you. And you're thinking, well, it's only a quick cut. That quick cut will make you cut yourself, or you'll mess up your fabric. So just, take the time to do things safely, and you'll find that you'll have better results in the end as well. Yeah, sawing does fray edges. And the most things that I see with people sawing is that ruler moves and they cut into that piece they just did. And when that happens, then you have to cut more. So trying again, teaching you accurate processes will help save you on fabric, save you on long-term time. So I know we don't like it. Trust me, I don't enjoy pressing, but you'll be more happy with your end results. So does anybody else have any questions about cutting today as it pertains to our lesson? I have a lot more. I'm going to talk about cutting. I'm going to talk about squaring up squares, but we'll do that in another session because we don't have a square to cut. And the other thing I was thinking about is pressing. I will talk more about pressing again when we have a block that we have to press. So again, our accuracy processes go through different steps of our quilt building process. So, but the first accuracy is pressing. Second accuracy is cutting. And our next one, which will be tomorrow's Thursday. Yes, we'll be sewing an accurate 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to figure out my camera so you'll see my machine and how I can help you try to locate your 1/4 inch on your machine if you don't have a foot. But I do encourage a 1/4 inch foot. So if nobody else has any other questions today, I'm going to wrap it up. I have another live to get ready for this afternoon. because I'm going to share stuff from market and a couple shop hops we're doing this week. I'm really excited. On the 7th, we are part of the Lucky 7. We're doing a completely new concept shop hop with about, I think, 8 other shops all month long. So it's going to be kind of fun and different. And so I'm going to talk about that and some other things we got going on for November. 12 Days Giving is going to start later, and some other things that are happening. So if there are no other questions, you can always reach me at info@fiberologylab.com, and I will just see you guys later. And you have a great Wednesday. And remember, we are friends, fibers, and fun.